Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Piarco International Airport in Trinidad. We are here today in the Just Flight Piper Aero, the recently updated Just Flight Piper Aero. And we're going to have a look at what they've done here and what we've got to work with. A lot of the updates have to do with this right here, so let's get right to it. The main thing, this is the base page for the EFB, which everybody's going to be familiar with. State saving, your GPS, auto fuel selector, the doors, the yokes, etc., etc. The big addition to this particular page is the trim sensitivity. This is not a slider. You actually have to, well, I guess you can slide and let go and it'll move, but you just click it and it'll move to wherever your pointer is. If you move it down here towards the left and I use a hat switch on my Alpha to adjust the trim, and you can see it moves very slowly. Click down at this end, you look down and you'll see it moves very quickly. So really pretty cool addition. This is something that I've played around with a little bit over the last couple of days. I find that I like it to be a little bit further down on the left side, makes it more of a fine-tuning instrument. It's pretty useful and a good addition. Let's go through what we've got. This is your operational flight plan. This is how you set up your SimBrief flight plans in the EFB. You just enter your SimBrief ID, click continue, and whichever is your latest flight plan that you've downloaded for the sim is found here. Departure is Piarco, destination is Tobago, Robinson Airport. If you're flying, of course it's not an airline, but you got your ID right here, your registration number. Here's your route. This is your basic weather, average wind correction, average ISA. That's International Standard Atmosphere, which is temperature. And your average wind. This is the performance calculations for the flight. Zero fuel weight 2237, block fuel 155 pounds. Divide that by 6, it'll give you the number of gallons. Aviation fuel weighs 6 pounds per gallon. Cruise altitude 3,000, distance 56 nautical miles. I'm actually going to climb a little higher than that, and you'll see why. METARs, this is fantastic. Gives you all the METARs for your departure. I don't know what they call it. Origin should be departure. Departure, destination, and your alternate, which is your departure point, which doesn't really make any sense, but it's not a whole lot of airports in this part of the world. So there's all that. And then if you click here, you get your the operational flight plan from SimBrief, the full operational flight plan that we're all familiar with. You get your route. If you do flight level change up, tells you what kind of operational impacts it has on your time, on the amount of fuel used, that sort of thing. Really used for jets and more high performance aircraft than this. But there's all your waypoints and your winds and your different things at your different waypoints, all your winds. So this is all, and if you go all the way down, you even get the little maps. Not that they really do you a whole heck of a lot of good. I mean, can you tell which way the wind is blowing right there? I can't. So, but it's cool. You've got your flight plan. METARs is nice to have because you can see the wind, you can see your pressure, the local pressure setting, altimeter setting. Go back here. This is a map feature, which is pretty cool. It's a little slow to load. Not that big a deal because this airplane doesn't move very quickly, so you don't really have to worry too much about adjusting the zoom on the map. That's a little slower than I've seen it load in the past, but like if I want to zoom out a little bit, it's going to go through the same process and load very slowly. If you were flying a faster airplane, it might make a difference. In this airplane, it really doesn't. I do wish that either this page right here in the EFB or the charts page would give you access to the in-route charts, in-route Navigraph /JEP charts. It does not, it's the way it is, right? No big deal. Click one zoom in there. So that's your aircraft page. It's what we already talked about. Come out here. This one's pretty cool. This is a notes page. You can use an on-screen keyboard if you don't have a keyboard. Like I don't know. Presumably, if you're on an Xbox, for example. But otherwise, you can just click in here, and let's say you get runway 10 taxi via Charlie Alpha Bravo 1. Just if that's what VATSIM controller gives you, just come in here and put it in. Let's actually check, make sure we are connected to VATSIM. Or if you get direct wallow, just type it in. I like to write things down as soon as I hear them, so that it's there, so I don't. So a lot of times you're doing other things, maybe looking out for traffic. You may be, they may give you, direct wallow, maintain 4,500, Boston Center and 128.77, whatever. And then you're trying to remember the frequency. You're trying to remember the waypoint. I just like to write things down. Remember, speed is not your friend in terms of responding to ATC. Accuracy is your friend. So I like to write things down. That's a really great, and you can also, I don't know why you would, but you can, like if you have information Bravo, for example, on your METAR or ATIS information Bravo, you can write it like that if you want to. I don't know why you would, but again, you can. Checklists. Now this is pretty cool. This I'm going to show you my first real insight into this airplane. The checklists are pretty extensive, and they're very well done. You can go through and check the items off. You can check them all. You can clear them all. One thing that, for example, on this checklist right here, the ground check, this is your engine check. Normally, you're always going to have a flight control check. Is going to be the first thing on your ground check checklist, right? There's no flight control check anywhere. And you should do a flight control check before you take off. So, I was kind of disappointed. I thought, well, geez, it's unfortunate that you can't, edit these checklists and add something or move things around. For example, like the engine start checklist. The first thing I do in every airplane that I fly for engine start is rotating beacon on. I do that before I turn on before I, put electrical power to the airplane, and there's a reason why, and the reason is, if you've got you turn the rotating beacon on, if for some reason you've forgotten to turn the master and battery switches off, or for some other reason there's electrical power to the airplane, as soon as you turn that on, the rotating beacon is going to start, and people around the airplane on the tarmac are going to notice, hey, there's lights from that airplane. It's something I should probably not get close to, right? But in a standard start situation, you turn the rotating beacon on, and then as soon as you flip the battery switches on, that beacon is going. There are scenarios in which you could flip the battery switches on and the engine could start, and you want to avoid that, of course, without keeping people away from the airplane. So I always put the rotating beacon on first, and I was kind of thinking, gee, it's unfortunate I can't move that from here to here. There's a couple other things that have come that I've noticed in the checklist that I would change, and I thought, gee, that's unfortunate. Well, guess what? Let's take a quick look at our pre-flight interior checklist. First item, parking brake. Let's go Mets. Now, you would be correct in assuming that the pre-flight interior checklist does not start with parking brake, let's go Mets. So let's have a look here at what's going on. I'm going to open up the MSFS add-ons linker, which is one of the greatest add-ons for the sim. Open the Just Flight folder. Okay, here's your arrow. HTML UI, pages, vCockpit, instruments, airliners, JFPA 28, EFB, JSON, checklist, opens in Notepad, parking brake, let's go Mets. So you can change, you can reorder things. I mean, I haven't, this is the only thing I've done. But you can reorder things, you can add things, you can take things out that you don't want. People have their own ways of doing things, and you can have your own checklist, which is really kind of cool. So we'll turn that off. That all being said, let's go to the TOD calculator. Now the TOD calculator is pretty cool. It's got these two sync buttons for altitude and ground speed. And if you click those, it will hold. It's actually not going to take whatever the current value is and keep it static. What it's going to do, it's going to continually adjust whatever these two numbers are to match your actual altitude and your actual ground speed. And so that will change these values down here as we'll talk about that here as we go on. So let's say your altitude is 5,500 feet. Ground speed is 130 knots. Your target altitude is 1,000 feet. Now this is in MSL, which is mean sea level. This is above sea level. It's not above ground level. So if you want to go from 5,500 to 1,000 feet at a desired angle of 3 degrees, it's going to take you 14 nautical miles at 658 feet per minute to do so. Cool to know, right? The other way you can do it is over a desired distance. Let's say I want to be, at 1,000 feet, 5 miles from the field. So I'm going to maybe start that 20 miles out, so I'm 25 miles from the field, and it's going to tell you 465 feet a minute at that speed. The descent angle, desired descend angle, it should be descent angle, is not really relevant in this particular case because you're just doing over distance, or you can do it desired vertical speed, which is what I tend to use. If you want, 500 feet per minute is a good descent rate in small airplanes, keeps your passengers comfortable, particularly people who are not used to flying small airplanes. And it's going to take me a total of 19 nautical miles to descend that 4,500 feet at 130 knots. And actually, I want to do a math check here. No, I was wrong. Okay, never mind. So anyway, all that is well and good, right? So now we come to the first kind of goof in the airplane. You're going to kind of have to take my word for this one. I figured this out the hard way. I am moving my Honeycomb Alpha yoke right now, as you can well imagine. And if you click into one of these fields, see how it changes color? I've clicked into that field. When you are in one of those fields in the EFB, you cannot move the yoke. So I'm moving it back and left and right, back and forth right now. If I click out of it, they start moving again. As soon as I click into one of these, it stops. All right, which is kind of a pain. So just be aware of that. If you have one of these fields highlighted, you will not be able to move your yoke. And it's not just a visual thing. Like, you won't be able to, you will not be controlling the airplane, which is, of course, our goal. These are your settings: 12-hour clock format, local time. I like Zulu time personally. Different themes, different brightnesses, all well and good. All right, let's get back over here. We'll take a look at the charts. If you click here for departure, this is Piarco, your arrival, your destination, Robinson. This will give you all of your different charts, which is really pretty cool. I don't anticipate that I would use this for actual flight operations for two particular reasons. Number one, you can't move it around. Like, if I zoom in, I can't drag it, which I really wish I could. So that kind of makes it pointless in a way. The other thing is, it's if you're in actual IMC and you're flying an approach, you're going to be monitoring your instruments. You don't have the ability to be doing this the whole time, which is why in my actual airplane I have an iPad mounted on my yoke. It's got the charts on it, so you've just got your chart right here and you got your instruments right in front of you. But it's still a cool feature. I'm not going to say it isn't. The thing that I particularly use it for is for the taxi feature, for the ground chart. Open it up like that. You zoom in here, and if you hit this little thing right there, it'll bring up your airplane and shows you where you are. Makes it pretty handy to be able to taxi, without goofing anything up. I don't know why those were where they were. So last thing before we get going, I'm gonna get rid of these yokes just because it's a little easier to see. This is your ancient Piper Autocontrol 3B Autopilot. It's a 2-axis autopilot. In real life, they have added this vertical speed mode, which I'm not really sure I'm a fan of. But so basically, it doesn't have vertical speed mode. This autopilot doesn't have flight level change mode. Clearly, a lot of people who fly this airplane for in Microsoft Flight Simulator want that. Just Flight has added it. In order to engage vertical speed mode, you click right here, left click with your mouse right here, and let's say you're flying, you're at a 700 foot per minute climb, and you click this. It will then hold that 700 foot per minute climb, and the autopilots were left on by whoever flew this plane last, which is me. And in order to adjust this up or down, you can go here and scroll up or down with your mouse, which is all well and good. One thing to be aware of, which I think is sort of kind of silly, if the autopilot, let's say you engage the autopilot, you're climbing at 700 feet per minute, and you click the vertical speed mode on, and for whatever reason you decide you want to disengage the autopilot, if you disengage that autopilot, it's going to stay in vertical speed mode, even though the autopilot is off, which I think is kind of pointless. So just remember that if you do turn off the autopilot and you've got vertical speed mode engaged, you do have to disable that as well, or disengage that as well. Last thought on the vertical speed mode: it is vertical speed mode. It is not an altitude hold mode. Altitude hold mode holds you at whatever altitude you are. If I climb to 3,000 feet, and as I get to 2950, and I click altitude hold mode, which this plane does not have, the airplane will capture whatever altitude that is and hold there. Right? Now, with this, you can be climbing at 700 feet a minute or 500 feet a minute or whatever, and you come up just short of your cruising altitude and you start scrolling forward to pitch the nose down. You can level the airplane off at that altitude. You're probably not going to get it exactly, but you can level the airplane using vertical speed mode. It just means vertical speed is at 0. But this is not an altitude hold mode, and I've seen a lot of people referring to it as an altitude hold mode. That's not what it is. It is vertical speed mode, aka flight level change mode. But again, it's not going to capture an altitude. So, last thought on the vertical speed mode. The other thing that I don't particularly like about it is if this were actually integrated into the airplane and you had a vertical speed mode in this airplane, right, there would be a bug. Same as there would be a bug if you had altitude hold mode. There would be a bug on the altimeter, which you could set at 4,500 feet. If you want to hold at 4,500 feet, you set the bug, you activate altitude hold mode, and it will hold at 4,500 feet. And if you wanted to climb at 800 feet a minute, you would set that bug at 800 feet a minute, engage altitude vertical speed mode, and it would climb at whatever you've got the bug set at, or descend at whatever you've got the bug set at. There are no bugs on these instruments because these are not integrated systems. It doesn't work the way it should work. And so if you're going to be engaging and disengaging this, you're going to have to guess and try to remember what you got it set to, which is a little bit of a pain. There is a secret altitude hold mode for Honeycomb Bravo users, and I will show that to you guys while we're flying. And let's get flying, because otherwise we're going to spend the rest of our lives down here on the ground. In any event, this is literally like the 7th time I've tried making this video, and I'm literally praying that this works. So checklist use, I talked about it a little bit. Like, these checklists aren't the order in which I would normally do things. And I've got a couple hundred hours in Cherokees in real life. I've got several hundred more hours of Cherokees in the sim, so I'm very familiar with how they are operated. So I don't necessarily use the checklists in the sim in particular. But so there's really 2 ways of going about a checklist. You can either look at the checklist, perform the item, and then check it off, like circuit breakers, all in, alternate air, check off, prop max RPM, check, etc. Fuel selector on the fullest tank. What's our fullest tank? We're not going to know until we turn the battery on. But the other way of doing it is the way I tend to do it, which is you go through each of the steps and then you look back and you check them off on the checklist after you've done them. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to leave the yokes out of the way so we can see everything. Rotating beacon on, like I said, I want to have that on so that when I put electricity to the airplane, that will come on automatically. Rotating beacon on, mixtures and props pull forward, master and battery switches on. Yeah, gear handle is up. And when you get interrupted in a checklist, go back. Don't try to remember where you were. Go back. Rotating beacon on. Mixture rich. Carb heat is cold. Master and battery switches on. Fuel pump on. Throttle cracked. 1/2 inch. Take a look outside. Make sure there's nobody outside to kill or maim. And there is not. Toes on the brakes. Parking brakes should be set. And engage the starter. magnetos back to both, throttle to 1200, and I actually just screwed that up. I was supposed to start the engine with the mixture leaned. That's how you do it in this plane. But once you get the engine going, check your oil pressure first thing, because if you don't have oil pressure, you're going to want to turn it off right away. Throttle 1200, lean the mixture, and you can't lean the mixture too much, remember that. And you should always lean the mixture when you're on the ground. The reason you lean the mixture is to keep the spark plugs from fouling. Fouled spark plugs can cause your engine to quit, and if that happens at the wrong time, it could really ruin your day. CDI to VLOC, that's CDI to GPS rather. Nav and strobe lights on, landing light on. So let's come back over here and we'll make sure we didn't forget anything. Throttle, battery, alternator, beacon, nav lights, fuel pump, mixture. That's the one I screwed up right there. Propeller clear, ignition. And again, here's another thing I would change: adjust 1500 RPM. No way do you want it at 1500 RPM. It's way too fast, way too high. Setting. All right, landing light as required. Avionics on. Radios set. Transponder set. Altimeter setting, and we can go get our altimeter setting right here. I know what it is, but it's cool to do. 2985. Go back over here to checklist. 2985. 2985. Looking good. I don't know why I planned with the French registration as inches of mercury instead of QNH, but it does. Altimeter setting check. Heading indicator. Let's see. What is it? 230. 230. That's good. Parking brake release, test brakes. Flight instrumentation and avionics, we're going to have to, we'll do those as we go. We'll talk about that. And let's get back over here to the charts. And there we go. We want to taxi Bravo 1. So, PRCO traffic, Arrow, Foxtrot, Charlie Bravo, taxiing to runway 10 via taxiway Bravo 1, PRCO. Alright, release the brakes, and as soon as the airplane gets moving, apply the toe brakes, make sure they're working. Why do you want to do that? I do that in every airplane I fly, and the reason is, if the brakes aren't working, I would rather know now, as opposed to when I'm trying to hold short of the runway. Apparently I've been slouching because my head position is off by quite a bit. Alright, so let's taxi over here, hold short of runway 10. Last time I tried this takeoff, attempt number 6 or so, to make this video, the ground physics were just unbelievably squirrely. I don't know why, but it just was. So just be aware. We may experience that. Alright, let's apply the brakes, set the parking brake. I'm going to keep my toe brake set anyway, simply because it's always a good idea. It's very easy to get head down in an engine check and the airplane's creeping forward and you don't notice. So we're going to do a flight control check. I'm going to bring up, that's another thing that's not on the checklist that I think should be on the checklist, so that's something I'm going to add. Ground check, the first thing right here should be flight control check. Always do a flight control check. Now we're going to do a quiz. So if I go hard left on this yoke, which way is the left aileron going to be? Is it going to be up or is it going to be down? The answer is up, as you can see. Look to the right. That is down. Hard right, that should be up. That should be down. Let's put our flaps down all the way. Flaps are down all the way on that side, all the way down on that side. Flaps all the way up on that side, all the way up on that side. Elevator, you can see it from the cockpit of the Cherokee. When you pull this back towards you, it should angle up at the back like that. Okay. So flight controls are free and correct, and you'll see a lot of guys doing just, they don't even look, they might look out the window, but they're just kind of going back and forth like this. Or you see a lot of guys just do this and they don't even look out the window, and they say flight controls free and correct. Now you can tell your flight controls are free by doing this. In other words, free of like obstructions or anything blocking the cables or whatever. So you have full movement of the controls, but you don't know whether they're rigged correctly. And people have died from not doing flight control checks, and people have died from doing flight control checks incorrectly and not realizing that the flight controls were not right. So always do a flight control check. It is the most basic thing you can do to keep yourself safe. So ground check, we're gonna do mixture rich fuel pump. I should have turned it off, but it's still on. All good. Toe brakes are set. Throttle to 2,000. That's a little bit high. Alright, left magneto. Max 150 RPM drop is what you're looking for. Good drop there, back to both. Right magneto. Good drop, and within 50 RPM of one another is what you're looking for. So the left and the right should be within 50 RPM of one another. Good check there. Carb heat. It doesn't cause a drop, but that's neither here nor there, I guess, in this airplane. Fuel pump off. You notice the alternator dropped a little bit because it's less load. Fuel pressure is still good. Gyro is good at 5 inches of suction. You want to test the annunciators. They are all looking good. Now we want to exercise the prop. And you saw, if you were looking over here, that the oil pressure dropped. Now we want to look at the RPM and exercise it again. RPM drops, and we do it a third time. Look out the window at the cowling. Make sure there's no oil spewed all over the cowling. That's back to both. Alright. And I believe I remembered everything. So now we want to bring it back to idle. Idle should be 650 RPM or so. 700 is about right. And you should just hear a smooth running engine. That's all you're looking for. If the engine's running smoothly with a throttle idle check, and see that is 650 right there, that means the engine is warmed up enough for flight. Come back to 1200 RPM. And then lean the mixture again. I always lean the mixture when I am on the ground. Let's make sure we did the check correctly. Veto's vacuum check, oil pressure and temperature. Ammeter we checked. Propeller, alternate air, boost pump off. There is no boost pump on checklist item, which there should be. 650, throttle back to alright, battery switch on. Alternator is on, we know that. Strobe lights are on, landing lights on. Fuel pump coming on. Fuel selector fullest tank. Which one is our fullest tank? Left tank is good. I don't like switching tanks before takeoff because I know that the tank that I'm on has been working just fine. Engine gauges. Oil pressure good, oil temperature coming up. Amps are good. Got fuel on both sides. Fuel pressure is good. Mixture, I'll put that rich before we take off. Prop RPM is full forward. Flaps are set. Trim. Just about neutral is good in a Cherokee. Cabin door closed and latched. Don't ever forget that one. That is closed. That is See, up is open, so that is closed and latched. Alright, takeoff. I don't need that checklist, so we're good to go. Let's see here. One thing I do want to do is set the... This should be set to 105, which is our departure heading. The needle is deflected slightly to the left because our course is runway heading and the runway is in front of us. So I think we are good to go. Let's release the parking brake. I will put the yokes back. Okay, so we can see them again. Alright. I don't know what. This plane starts moving like hard to one direction or the other as soon as you let go of the brakes. Piarco traffic, Aero Foxtrot Charlie Bravo, departing runway 10, left crosswind departure to the north. Piarco. Alright, mixture rich, prop is full forward, carb heat is cold. Let's make sure we are on the correct runway. We are. Takeoff power is coming in. Takeoff power is set. Engine instruments are in the green. Airspeed is alive. Accelerating normally. And rotate. Now we've got a nice long runway in front of us. A lot of people want to yank the gear up as soon as you depart. I don't do that. I want to make sure that if this engine quits, I've got gear to use. It's one less thing to think about, you know, in a problem situation. And look off to your side and see where the taxiway ends, and that's when you know, I don't have any more runway to use. Bring up that gear. Bring this back to 25 squared. Alright, and now let's all cross our fingers, engage the autopilot. And I think we're doing good. 1,000 feet AGL, let's turn the fuel pump off. Let's check our fuel pressure. Fuel pressure is good. Now I am going to engage the vertical speed mode. The other thing that I don't like about the way this is set up is that there is no way to know whether, I can look down and look at that autopilot switch and I physically see that it's on. There isn't a way to physically see that the vertical speed mode is engaged. Now, if you have a Honeycomb Bravo, or I'm sure other types of equipment, same way, you can use it to adjust the vertical speed. So I just set it to the vertical speed setting, and I pitch that nose down using my Bravo. We are a little bit right, a little bit left, of course, rather. So all things considered, though, we're looking pretty good. Okay. I'm going to climb to 5,500 feet today because those mountains right there, they're at about 3,000. A little higher than 3,000. And I could climb to 3,500, but that only gives me 500 foot clearance, and I prefer to have a little bit more than that. Most specifically for any kind of turbulence. If you get a mountain wave, you get any kind of strong wind over the mountains, you can get what's called a mountain wave, which is kind of like air tumbling. Like if you ever look at a stream and you get boulders in the stream or rocks in the stream and the water kind of tumbles over it. It's the same thing the air does over these mountains. And what that can do to you is get you in, you know, some pretty good turbulence, and that can ruin your day. And plus, I like being comfortable when I'm flying, and it's not particularly comfortable to be chucked around by mountains. So far so good. We are on our way to Dannon intersection, and we should be turning left to heading 055 here shortly, and I'm very hopeful that the airplane will turn. The airplane is not turning.
Climbing through transition altitude.
So, I've had this issue with this thing before. Don't quite know what the deal is. Why it doesn't feel like shot the heading there a little bit. It seems now like what it's trying to do is capture the GPS course again, which is indeed what it seems like it's doing. So I don't know. I mean, I've got some questions about this thing. Last time, I'm gonna start leaning to make sure. Last time I flew, it did capture the GPS heading without me flipping the heading switch on. I don't know why it didn't in this particular case. So now we're coming up to 5,500 feet, and this is our next trick. So if you have a Honeycomb Bravo and you get to an altitude that you want to level off at, you can hit your ALT, altitude hold button, and it will hold at that altitude. So once we get to 5,500 feet, I'm going to hit that button. And it will pitch over and hold 5,500 feet. It shouldn't do that, frankly, but it does. And NAV mode is engaged. The Bravo makes it sort of like cheating, I guess, because, you know, I don't know. You shouldn't have to have, you know, I can make this work properly with the Bravo. You shouldn't have to have the Bravo in order to make it work properly, if that makes sense. I've got TLOD, the terrain level of detail, set to 5,500 feet, 5,500 feet to 400, which is the max setting. So we're really getting some awesome views here. At least I consider them awesome in my extremely humble opinion. How cool is that? We're gonna get chucked around a little bit coming over these mountains, but like I said, at a little extra altitude, we should be good. And coming up here, we should be left to 032 in 10 seconds. So let's see if with heading mode and autopilot mode on, and it doesn't make any sense. So with heading mode engaged, well, no, you know what, I'm a moron. This is what I'm thinking of. So the reason why I didn't turn earlier is because I didn't have the heading setting on. So autopilot heading and heading this is driven by the nav. So please excuse me. Anytime I screw something up, I'm going to tell you guys I screwed that up. It sometimes comes fast and furious. I should switch tanks. Fuel pump off, check your fuel pressure. Why do you do that? So if you're checking your first of all, when you get to level cruise, it's always a good idea to switch fuel tanks, simply because we're going to lean the mixture now. Simply because it uses a lot of fuel to climb. Airplane uses a lot of fuel to climb, and what I'm doing here, I'm pulling back the mixture, and the exhaust gas temperature right there is increasing as I lean the mixture. And we're going to wait until that white needle stops moving and reverses. See that? See how it reversed back to the left? Now I'm going to push it back in to where its peak was, the highest it was. And the highest it was in this particular case is right there. And you're going to match it with that little red indicator there. How beautiful is this? Who would think that we were in the Caribbean right now? So we've got it set to the max EGT right now. Now what I want to do is push the mixture in until it drops 50 degrees. Now each line is 50 degrees, so I want 2 lines, right? And I'm going to push that in, watch it drop. 1 more line, there's 2 lines, that's 50 degrees. We are now 50 degrees rich of peak, which is where the recognized expert of piston engine, aircraft piston engines, expert Mike Evans? Can't remember. It's Mike something. But he's like the engine guy, and he says if you set it to 50 degrees rich of peak, you're never going to have it. You're not going to have, you're not going to be causing any damage to your airplane. People try running it lean of peak, and the reason why they want to run it lean of peak is because lean of peak is you're using less fuel, and that's to me a stupid reason. I mean, if you're so cheap, you're either flying professionally and if you're flying professionally, somebody else is paying for the fuel. So why would you bother trying to save fuel? Why would you want to take a risk to damage your engine to save fuel, right? Or you're flying for your own pleasure, in which case, don't be a cheapskate. Either don't fly, or don't try to save a few bucks out of fuel. All that stuff is good, in my opinion, anyway. Landing gear up, flaps up, airspeed good. Boost pump off, landing light as required. I leave my landing light on under 10,000 feet, and the reason is, I'll show you why. That's why. It doesn't really show that much in the sim, but the landing light is pretty bright, and the whole point is to be seen. You want people to be able to see you, so if you've got that light on, it's much easier to see the airplane. So I always leave that light on under 10,000 feet, which is where I spend most of my life. Mixture lean above 3,000 feet done. Cruise, power, set. RPM is required. Mixture lean, elevator trim set, engine gauges. Check. Fuel pressure good. Alternator good. Oil control pressure good. Switch tanks periodically, and I was actually talking about that a little bit ago. The best way I think to do it is to switch every 30 minutes. That's what people generally do. Let's see if we can get some action here from our TOD calculator. See that, how we're at 5497, 142 knots ground speed. That's pretty good. Desired target altitude is, I'm going to go 1,500 feet because we're going to be on a 10-mile final. 300 feet per mile. Yeah, 3,000 feet is pretty good actually. So we'll go 3,000 feet. And desired vertical speed is 500 feet per minute. So top of descent is 11 nautical miles. We'll keep an eye on that. So I think what that means is that 11 nautical miles from
destination is 132.2.
Okay. I think what it means is that this is at 10 nautical miles from this waypoint, or 11 nautical miles from this waypoint. We start our top of descent. Yeah, it's not changing. So we are now 13 nautical miles from that point, and so we will start our descent here at 500 feet per minute in a couple of miles. So let's go back to our operational flight plan. Let's check our METARS destination 2985, which is what we had. Wind is 110 at 13 knots. Temperature 29. My visibility is good. Everything's looking just fine. Just gonna make sure that I don't have any of these highlighted, because if I do, I might not be able to use my flight controls. Alright, 11 nautical miles from Sassim. Let's go. Let's go vertical speed mode. Alright, I'm gonna have to click over here, I guess. And I do. Alright. So I have vertical speed mode enabled, which this airplane does not have. So be it. And our ground speed is going to increase as we descend, which is fine. We just want to stay out of the yellow arc. So let's see. We'll probably, we're going to take 20 miles from the airport. So let's make a radio call here. Robinson traffic. Arrow Foxtrot Charlie Bravo is 20 miles to the southwest, inbound runway 10, Robinson. And now would be a good time to look at the airport map at Robinson and discover that it's runway 11, not runway 10. So we can figure that out using this handy dandy charts app, right? Let's do that. Get to our arrival. Do you have any reference? I love checking the reference charts if there are any. If there are not, I will always look at any old approach just to see what the airport elevation is. About 30 feet. I knew. And go here and have a look at the runway field, I should say. And again, I really wish there was a way to move up and down here. Birds on approach to runway 11. So we're probably not going to make Charlie. You might, probably not. So we'll have to turn around and come back. All good. Let's see here. Now it's time to start slowing down. I don't mind being high because I mean it's not like it's a real, you know, if you're in something like the 737, you do have to do your descent planning pretty accurately. And this airplane is not really that big of a deal. Because it's not hard to lose altitude without gaining an enormous amount of speed and energy like it is in something like a transport category jet. So I'm going to leave that chart up. I suppose I don't have to. Just bring up our map here. Zoom that in. And start turning in here.
Transition altitude. Nearest altimeter.
Yep. And we are 15 miles. Robinson traffic, Arrow, Foxtrot, Charlie Bravo, 15 mile final runway 11, Robinson. It's actually Robinson traffic, Arrow, Foxtrot, Charlie Bravo, correction, 10 mile final runway 11, Robinson. In which case, fuel is
Approximately 3.6 miles.
pretty well balanced. Let's see what they've got in the way of a descent checklist for this airplane. That power is a mixture of the altitude, elevator trim set, total setting check. Everything looking good. Landing let out, fuel selector on the full tanks. Boost pump is coming on. Boost pump is on. RPM, max RPM. We'll do that closer in. Parking brake release. Gear selector, click down. Flap set checked. Check everything. All good to go. Flap set checked. Final approach speed trim for 75. Touchdown mains first. That's good advice right there. Alright, so we are pretty much ready to go. Let's see here, maneuver 118. I'm going to go gear down because I want some drag. Slow the airplane down. I'm going to pitch the nose up a little bit because it's going to help me lose some airspeed. Then I can put in first notch of flaps. And then what I can do is reach over here and turn the autopilot off my airplane. Because after all, I am the pilot. And second notch of flaps. Alright. And we're much slower now, which is good. Okay. So I'm going to go mixture and prop full forward. The reason I'm going full forward on the prop this far out is because there's nobody to annoy. The reason you don't want to go full forward on the prop until you're closer into land is because it's really loud. But if we're over open water, there's nobody to bother. What's the difference? So I am relatively comfortable with what's going on. Alright, fuel pump on, make sure the props fuel forward. Seatbelts are secure. Pre-landing checklist complete. 1,000 feet at 3 miles would be perfect. Robinson traffic, Arrow, Foxtrot, Charlie Bravo, 2 mile final, runway 11. Robinson. That's one thing I'm not real good at, to be honest with you, is judging my distance out. See, it's got the PAPIs on the left-hand side of the runway, and what I want is PAPIs are set for the largest airplane that flies into this airport, which is going to be some sort of a jet, right? So it's going to be set for an airplane whose the gear is, significantly below the cockpit, right? And so if I'm on that glide slope for the PAPI and a Piper Arrow, I'm actually a little bit low. So if I can get 3 white, 1 red, which is what I've got right now, I am generally a happy human being. So 3 white, 1 red. I'm gonna start dialing in some trim here for 75. And even if I'm 4 white right now, not that big a deal. Robinson traffic, Arrow, Foxtrot, Charlie Bravo, short final 1-1. Robinson. And there we go, 3 white, 1 red. And this is my kind of flying. I like boring flying. If something exciting happens in an airplane, in my opinion, that's not good. So, 2 white, 2 red. And you can see it start to sink right there. You gotta bring some power in. Don't let that happen. Airspeed is good. Alright. Looking mighty fine, I would say. Get ready to dance on the old rudder pedals. Start bringing some power back here. And start to bring that out. Let's be fair. And we are going to make Charlie. Only thing I'll do on the ground, on the runway rather, is lean the mixture, because I don't want foul spark plugs. The other thing I would do on the runway, if it were required, would be to put the carb heat back in, because carb heat is unfiltered air into your engine, and by unfiltered, what that means is like all the dirt and dust and muck that is on the ground gets sucked into your engine, and that is no good either. So wait until you are completely clear of that double yellow line, and we'll come to a stop. Robinson traffic arrow, Foxtrot Charlie Bravo is clear of runway 11, Robinson. Alright, now we'll put our flaps up, turn our fuel pump off, mixture is lean for taxi, throttle back to 1200. There's no taxi lights, we'll get the landing light on. The other thing we are going to do is open that, because it is hot. And we'll taxi over this way here. I'm sure there's a spot for us. So, this is Robinson Airport in Tobago. It's a cool airport. This comes as a package for this airport, Piarco, which we just flew out of, and Grenada. So those are three really cool airports, and you know, nothing spectacular, but I think they're well enough that they might cost like $12, $15, something like that. I think it's about $15. So I'm gonna take the big boy parking right here, because I have no other option. It doesn't really look like. So we will mosey on over here. So my seventh, I don't know if it's the seventh, but it's certainly the fifth attempt at making this video has been a success. Whether it's been a smashing success or not is for you guys to decide. For a second there, I thought that was a Confederate flag, which would have been pretty bizarre. Alright, mixture idle, cutoff, throttle is idle, parking brake is set, lights coming off, avionics coming off before you turn the mags off. Mags off. Master and battery switch is off. Let's make sure the mags are off. Make sure all those buttons there are off. Make sure the avionics are not on. Everything looking good. And then the best feeling in the world, you reach up there and pop that. And there we go. So, not the greatest parking job in the world. But here we are in Tobago. So, you know, some cool updates with this plane. I mean, nothing's perfect in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And Just Flight will, I'm sure, do a patch for some of the things that have come up. There's some CG issues that people have noticed in loading the airplane. There have been some people who have experienced things like I mentioned before about the operational flight plan not popping up in the EFB. I've had that happen to me a few times. Again, when that happens, what I've had success with doing is restarting my entire computer, unfortunately, but it's done it twice and worked both times. The other things people have noticed that it always loads with full fuel, no matter how much fuel you put in the world map page or the weight and balance page. But it's a beautiful airplane. I mean, this blue and green color scheme is just gorgeous. I think it's just a beautiful airplane. The autopilot works. You get a few extra treats if you've got a Honeycomb Bravo, like that altitude hold mode, which the airplane really doesn't have. But things function pretty well, with a semi-competent pilot at the controls, which I am semi-competent at best. It really handles pretty well, and I think it's a great update, great airplane, and I hope you guys enjoyed the flight. And I look forward to any comments or experiences or feedback that you guys have, and hope everybody's having a good day.